be taking a look at how to use a grid in order to effectively drop the facial features proportionately as you work from an image on a screen or a printout and you are trying to create that drawing in your sketchbook or on a separate sheet of paper. Okay, so gridding is a really simple process, and one of the things that we're going to do is use a digital tool to help with the grid process. Right? It's fairly straightforward. There are apps out there that you can purchase and put overlays and on top of different images. You can explore those on your own. I'm just going to use Google Slides in order to do this really quickly. So the first thing that I've done is I've changed the size of the actual image to 8 inches by 10 inches. And I've done that by going to File, Page Setup, and then selecting Custom from the drop-down menu and setting my dimensions in here and then applying. Then I took my image and I imported it in. I'm using an image by Steve Murray. He is a National Geographic photographer, and this is one of his portraits that I'm using as an exemplar. Once I have the image in place, I'm going to start drawing in a shape. I'm going to select a square. I'm going to just draw a random square. It doesn't really matter where it is at this point in time, because what we need to do is we need to set the parameters for this particular box. Okay? So I'm going to go to Format Options, and I'm going to change the width to 1 inch and the height to 1 inch in order to get a perfect square. Right? It's important that you make sure that this lock aspect ratio is unchecked. Otherwise, what you're going to notice is that when you change one dimension, the other one's going to change automatically. So once this is in place, this correct size, I'm going to take my fill, I'm going to make it transparent, and I'm going to change my border color to a kind of a lightish gray. And I found that about 3 pixel dimensions is good for being able to see this fairly clearly. Right? You can play around with it and see what you like as well. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste that block, and because the shapes snap together, I'm able to very quickly get these boxes to come across the top of my image, and then I'm going to select all of them. I'm holding the Shift key in order to grab multiple objects, and right click, and I'm going to group these together just so that it's a little bit easier in case I unclick, for example. Right now I can click and it grabs everything again. I'm going to Command or Control C for copy, and I'm going to paste that as well, and now I've got my second row, and I'm going to grab the 2 of them together and then paste again. And very, very quickly, I am able to establish a grid over top of a photo. All right, and the best part about this is that it is set up perfectly for what it is that I need to be able to do, right? And I can manipulate and slide images in and out in order to create this overall structure. Okay, so that's going to be part 1, is getting the image on your grid. Now what I want to do is I want to think about my own composition here in terms of how I want to emphasize this. And again, I'm going to draw in a shape. I'm going to use a rectangle, and I'm going to kind of start to kind of block out the areas that I don't want. I'm going to use black here just so that it really makes it a stark contrast. And I'm going to play around with what I want the composition to look like in my final drawing. I'm going to line that up. Right, and again, using the guide features, makes it really, really easy for me to go in and customize and get everything lined up. Okay, so there we go. This is what I'm going to use for my my particular drawing. If I'm printing this out, what I would probably do is I would join all of these together, right? And of course I would turn these white so that I'm not wasting my ink coming out of my paper. So I'm also going to just change that. I'm going to change my border color to white as well. All right, so one other thing that we can do here is to create a coordinate system. And to do that, I'm gonna copy these boxes here, and I'm gonna paste them down at the bottom, and I'm just gonna put a line through here, and I'm gonna change the orientation to centered horizontally and centered vertically as well. Because what I want to do here is type in some coordinates to make it easier for me to cross-reference to my original. So across the bottom, I'm going to put a numeric coordinate 4 and 5. Right? I can make these a little bit bigger, perhaps. Right, nice and large for us to be able to see. And then I'm also going to take these coordinates. I'm going to copy them again. And actually, I'm not going to copy them. I'm going to just copy 1, and that way I'm having troubles grabbing just the 1. Do you know what I need to do? I need to ungroup them. Okay, so here we go. Now we can start going. I'm going to move that one up, copy and paste this one as we go up the side. Right, of course I could grab a whole bunch of these as well, just so that I have less clicking that I need to do. There we go, and I'm going to select all of these, and again I'm going to change my font size and my alignment, and starting in the bottom left, I'm going to say this is my A block, B block, C block, D block, E block, F block, and G block. Again, let's get it a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. There we go. So by having these coordinates on both my reference photo and in my sketchbook or on my paper, it just makes sure that I'm getting the details in the correct boxes. All right, so we're going to jump back over to our paper drawing. Portraits. So the first thing that we're going to do is we need to figure out what the overall shape is that our distortion is going to be sort of put onto. So for my photograph, I think I'm going to just use a fairly simple teardrop shape. So I'm going to just lightly sketch this out. Okay, so one of the main differences here compared to using a traditional grid is that everything kind of gets done more freehand. So I'm going to be sketching this out. I know this is fairly light, but as we're drawing, remember we're working from light pencil marks to more intense. And what I want to do is just kind of get the overall basic shape that the distortion is going to end up conforming to. Okay, so I've got a teardrop shape here. Right, and then it's time to start creating the grid. So when I'm creating my grid, I need to remember that I need 5 spaces across, and I need 7 vertical spaces created. So I'm going to start by simply dividing up the the vertical dimension. And you'll notice that I'm kind of bulging this center one. I'm starting from the middle and kind of working my way out. All right, so through this process, I've got my 5 vertical sections. I've got my area 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 that are going to correspond with the grid that I had previously created. Right, now I need to create the vertical. And so this is where you get to kind of have a little bit more fun, right? Because again, we're not creating perfect squares. And I'm going to kind of bulge this up this way, and I'm going to bulge this down this way, right, in order to create that area of emphasis towards the center. Okay, so that across. So now I've got 3 sections, and I need to get 4 across the top. So I'm going to bring, so I got 1. I'm going to make these a little bit shorter. 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. Okay, so I have my 7 vertical designs: A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Okay, so now that I have the grid set up, right, what's going to happen is as I'm making my references between my proportionate drawing with the grid on my computer screen and my drawing down here, as long as I'm looking consistently at how the features interact with the lines on each square, then I'm going to be able to create that distortion. So I'm going to start with D3, or sorry, yes, D3 up here, and this is where the nose is. And I'm going to kind of try and sketch in the ridge of the nose. All right, I'm going to get the tip of the nose in and start following this around in order to create my details here. And this comes up over like so. Just going to work on refining the bridge here. And I'm going to come into the eyes. Right, so what's happening in here, there's a bulging effect, and in here there's going to end up being a kind of lengthening effect created by the distorted grid. Okay, so I'm kind of trying to come down and across the side of the face at the moment. And then I'm going to come up. Right, so I'm constantly just referring back to where the facial features are intersecting on the regular grid in order to figure out where these lines need to be on the distortion, right? And it's just constantly using these different points of reference, right? And 1, 2, 3, 4, D1, right? So I'm going to start taking a look at some of this fabric. Okay, so and just like this, we end up with a distortion, right? So a lot of it, again, I know I'm repeating myself, is by just simply looking at each individual square, right, and figuring out where does this line hit, right, and using our understanding of proportional reasoning in order to place where the lines need to go, right? So as I'm doing this, I'm subdividing up each of the lines into fractions, right? So is the nose coming to the halfway mark, or is it coming to the quarter, and or is it coming to perhaps a third, right? Those are the sort of the units of measurement that I will typically use: half, third, um, quarters as well. And, sometimes I would get down to maybe an eighth, but then like that, those are very like small in particular details. So the first process, hey, is into your sketchbook is you're going to create sort of the overall the shape that you want the distortion to use. The second thing that you're going to do is to create your grid manually, right? Notice, right? I didn't even pick up the ruler in order to create that grid, and then start working using the grid feature by feature in order to create your contour. There's two options at this point. Number one is if you have drawn very lightly and you are able to erase your grid lines, you can do that. And then go in and using your drawing pencils, add in value and create a full rendering. Alternatively, if you've pressed really, really hard and you feel like you need a fresh start, my recommendation would be to trace this out onto a clean sheet of paper and then create your drawing on that. Because otherwise the grid marks are going to show through and kind of take away from the illusion that you are trying to create. All right, so I hope that helps you out. It gives you some ideas of how to go about creating a gridded distortion. Best of luck. Can't wait to see what you're able to put together. Take care, guys. Bye.